Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining me today for this session on making your website accessible. I'll be talking also about the EU guidelines for 2025 compliance. And I know some of you are outside of the EU, but that's absolutely fine because this is a global best practice instead of just making it for EU standards. This is going to be a quick guide to ensure inclusivity and accessibility for all users. The EU, which is the EAA, European Accessibility Act, is a directive designed to make products and services, including websites, more accessible to people with disabilities. And what I'll go through is telling you how this can be done. In June 28, 2025, the law will be enforceable. And what that means is that pre-existing sites need to be compliant by then, and new sites will have to be compliant before the launch. Who needs to comply? Businesses offering these types of products and services must ensure the websites meet accessibility standards by the 28th, and then from there on. Products covered are your computer hardware systems, operating systems for computer hardware systems, self-service terminals, interactive consumer computing devices, e-readers, and then there are the services that are services covered are e-commerce, banking services, phone services, website, mobile services, electronic tickets, e-books, access to audiovisual media services, and then calls to the European emergency number 112. The ones that are usually covered in the people that follow me are e-commerce, websites, and mobile services, access to audiovisual media services as well. There is an exemption for the EU regulation that will be going in force, and that is micro enterprises is defined as a company that employs fewer than 10 people and has an annual turnover or annual balance sheet not exceeding 2 million. This means that your business might qualify, and I say might because there's always little substandards, as a micro enterprise. You're not obligated to comply with the EE accessibility requirements for the services. Why you should still make accessibility efforts? Well, improving customer experience and widening your audience is always a benefit, not a con. Future-proofing your website in case the regulations change and become stricter. I can move this down a little so I can see that it's in the way. Let's put it here for this one. And it will reflect positively on your brand, showing a commitment to inclusivity. I don't know why it doesn't make me get this smaller. Okay, in your website, is your website truly accessible? You'll see a couple of these screens that will come by, and basically what these are is a lighthouse testing, which you can do by going into Chrome or I think it also works in other settings. I have to double check that, but you go in and you right click, and then you're able to go into basically you're going to see code, and then you're going to click on a setting that will take you to Lighthouse, which will do an evaluation of your site and tell you where you need to fix some things. Like here, this was 2 things that had to be fixed. So to make your website truly accessible, you're going to do the POUR effect, which is these 4 basically principles. So perceivable, content must be visible and understandable to all users. Operable, users can navigate easily with a keyboard or assistive tools. Understandable, information must be clear and predictable for all visitors. And robust, compatible with assistive technologies and future updates. Perceivable. So content needs to be able to be understood. So we're diving in now into the heart of really how to make your site accessible. There are standards and rules that you would need to follow for the EU, and one of them is definitely the alt text. The alt text is what you see behind, like, it's like it'll read what your image is. So basically it's the storytelling of your image. Captions for audio and video, the same thing. It's telling you what is happening in the storyline of the video. And if you can also put captions under your images as well. Sufficient color contrast is another issue that I see often, and that is where your colors, so for example, your buttons will be too light, and so somebody who has some issues like color blindness and they got like some vision impairments, they're not going to be able to see your button so clearly. Or text, even text on top of your background. Seeing through words and hearing through text. Alt text describes images for those who cannot see them, and captions bring audios to life for those who cannot hear them. Imagine reading a book where the pages are blank and watching a movie without sounds or captions. That's what the web feels like for someone with vision or hearing loss. Alt text and captions make sure your site tells its story to everyone. So that's why you want to be including those, obviously, in your website, because if a reader comes through, depending on what the person has the issue, the disability, it's going to be able to read and know what your site is trying to actually tell the people. Here's an example of a exercise I want you to try, and what I want you to do for this one is I want you to watch the video. The video will time out, and during that time I want you to see everything that's on here and write what everything is. Giving you a second so that you can catch everything that's on there. Okay. What did you see? So we just watched that, and then what did you see? Image and video alt text. So I saw a sunlit autumn leaves hanging from a tree branch glowing in golden hues with a soft forest background. Dust particles floating gently in the sunlight, creating a serene, warm atmosphere. Very descriptive, to the point, and what was shown on the actual video. Now we're going to go to what do you hear? And what I want you to do is listen, and you're not going to see anything because this part is to listen and determine what you're hearing. And then I want you basically to put that in words.
Let's do this.
Okay, now what did you hear? Now I'm going to ask you to, if you were doing the live class, I'd be asking you what you heard. But right now, think about it. And then this is what I heard. So, soft rustling leaves, gentle breeze, and a melody song of a nightingale in the background. Nightingale song fades out. Man enthusiastically says, let's do this. Now, if you notice that the man doesn't show up ever on the picture. So if you have somebody who can hear, they're going to know there's a man present somewhere. And someone who cannot see is never going to know that the person's here if you didn't have this text telling you that there's somebody saying, let's do this. So they could not see it. Obviously, they would see it. It's going to be written. Okay, so here is the whole thing combined. There we have the captions here, and they will change when it changes. And then there's the alt text written over here.
Let's do this.
So the yellow slides that you see here are going to be showing up also throughout this text, this slideshow. So what it is that the people who allowed me to evaluate their site and do an audit testing on them, I have created a universal of majority of points that pretty much all of them had. So one of the things that they had was missing or inadequate image alt text. This is very important. It's very important. It's one of the things that if you don't have, it's easy to do, to fix and go through and correct it. So linked images or content images often lack descriptive alt text and had redundant or empty descriptions. Screen readers, when they go through, they're going through your site, they're going to hit an image, they're going to want to know what that image is. or they hit a video, they want to know what that video is. To have that alt text description and not a redundant one, which I will explain a little more on that. Why this matters is because it needs to describe it in the storytelling mode of why you put that image on your, you put the image on your website for a reason, so you should be able to describe what that reason is. So that's what you're doing. You're basically given the description for the screen reader to tell the person who's going through your site what it is that they're seeing. So one of the things they say is redundant, and I think one of the things that they catch a lot, at least what I have seen, is like your logo. So if your logo's on there and it's in a couple spots in your site, it'll say that that's a redundant image. One way you can correct it is just to reword the wording around a little bit by what you're describing for your logo. But I also want to incorporate that you can put SEO keywords into your descriptive text. Before, descriptive text used to be considered something as in keyword stuffing. Well, just throw as many things as you want in there that would for your site, even though the image wasn't really stating that. And that just becomes annoying for people who have to go through with screen readers, because it's like not really describing the image, but it's just giving them a bunch of keywords. So you need to think about these people when you are creating a site. It's not like you create the site, you do create a site for somebody who's got abilities, but people who have disabilities really should be thought about as well. So you don't stuff the keywords in there, but what you can do, so for example, if you have an image of, say for me, a computer, and there's a computer on a desktop in an office, and there are 3 young people who are sitting around it talking about, and then this is where you can put your SEO. So talking about branding or marketing or website building, because you can't really see what's on the screen, but so that you can actually tell the story. So why did I put that image there? Because I wanted it to be looking like there's a bunch of people talking about website building or branding, whichever. And that is where you can put your SEO in. So you can be descriptive in storytelling and include some SEO keywords, but just don't go you need to describe what that image is and not just throw a bunch of words in there. It has to make sense. Insufficient contrast ratios. Now what this is that text and interactive elements lacked sufficient color contrast against the background. And I'm going to give a couple examples. So what it means is that there's a difficulty to read, because the visually impairments is usually who are affected the most about this, obviously. And the contrast just makes it hard to read. So there's a rules, they're the WCAG 2.1 AA standard rules that are followed for when you are doing a contrast ratio. Normal text 4.5 to 1 contrast ratio, and large text is 3:1 contrast ratio. There's a tool checker that will come in the resources for those that have attended the class. This is one that you can use to check your contrasts. So this is my site actually, and I actually have done this sort of on purpose. But so this is an example of a contrast ratio issue. The white with the yellow and then the white font, it does not work. It's too light, and then people would have a hard time reading it. So it did get flagged, and that one I did correct. Now this is another interesting site that I had taken and done. You see this here where it's black with the white text, the gray text, and the yellow text, and you can see it quite clear. But the auto checking system picked it up differently. And what this is that this is actually a white, and I outlined it only so I can see the code number, but this is a white on white, and it's telling you it's a white on white. So it's saying it's a 1:1 ratio, and it's recognizing it as 1 on white. So it's recognizing this text on a white background. This is a low contrast yellow on, which I already mentioned in the one prior, on white, which is also flagged. So this saying that this yellow's fonts here are on a white background. Now the last one is the gray text, same thing. It's saying it's on a white background, which is not the case. So what I actually had to do is go into the code and see what was going on. So what is happening here is there's a override happening that is telling it that it's a white background, and that would need to be fixed. So this is more on a developer side, but that is where that issue is. So ideally they need to fix the code so it's basically white on black, gold on black, and then gray on black. But even with this gray gets flagged, and it should be a little bit lighter so that the person can see the font. Operable is the next one, and you can see here's another image of another site, one of the sites I tested, and the score. Users can navigate easily with a keyboard or assistive tools. Keyboard navigation is one of the things we definitely have to look at, which I will show you, which you can do to test it. Avoid flashing images that can cause seizures, and clear, consistent layout is very, very important. Avoid flashing images. Now, if you have an issue with flashing images you don't want to watch, turn away for a couple seconds. Something like this put on your site, like the first thing especially that they arrive to, can be very much of a problem. That one is a little bit slower because where I pulled the image from, it would not allow me to actually post it higher than the recommended standards. So anything under, basically the speed would be under 3. You cannot have it faster than that. You cannot have a fast speed of like 5. It's too much. All right, keyboard navigation. I'm doing a little tutorial here on the keyboard navigation. I used my site. What you can do is you can check your key by going to your site and hitting the tab key. It will take you through everything that is a link or a menu that will move you on to another step. So that is one way to check to see if your keyboard it can be keyboard navigated. So you'll see here I start off, and it's not so clear anymore for some reason, and it goes through and it goes to each of my menus, and then that one actually even moves further down to my images that link to my templates. So that's a way to I just wanted to do it quickly to show you, but you can do it. You just go in there and check it that way. So what a lot of the sites also had was touch target size and spacing. What this does, and it affects people who have more motor impairment, and button links or interactive elements were too small or too close together, and making it very difficult to tap, especially on mobile devices. If you're even playing like a video game, or if you are trying to click and link to go somewhere, or if you're even trying to purchase something, if your finger hits the wrong button, which mine has actually done many times, it's very frustrating for the user, the person so it doesn't even matter whether or not it's somebody who has a disability. If a regular user ends up having issues, then it's a problem. So there was a site that had touch target size spacing issues. They say to ensure the target size is at least 44 by 44 pixels with adequate spacing. So try it out, test it out on your mobile before you even, before you finalize, say, hey, it's up and running. I mean, even afterwards though, double check it, make sure everything is still spaced out correctly, and that you can touch it on your phone, and also on your site, if it's on a tablet too. They have to make sure everything's spaced out. Links with no discernible names. Some links had no text or vague descriptions. Click here. Click here is not really telling you what is going to happen next, or where really to go, or what it's doing. So screen readers, when they come through, they're just going to hear, if you just put click here for everything, click here, click here, click here. So they're telling you that the best to do is to clarify it a little bit more. Write something like explore our services, or download the report, or to move on other than hearing just click here, click here, click here. Sometimes if people use the same thing, it's best to make a variety out of it. So you're going to say like contact me is a little bit more descriptive than just click here or submit. So change your links and don't make them so vague. Understandable. Here's another accessibility that was done. And so, okay, understandable, again, is information must be clear and predictable for all visitors. The highlight for this is simple language predictable navigation, and helpful error messages. So one of the things that predictability is going to be like your headers. If you have missing headers, it's a problem. Headers are basically your outline for your site or outline for your page, if we take it just by page. So it's something that needs to go from header 1 to header 2 to header 3 and downwards, and then the paragraphs in between there, obviously, wherever the paragraphs go, from paragraph 1 to paragraph 2. And what it does, it's your outline. So when a screen reader comes through, they're going to be like, where's the header? So they're going to get confused when it has to go from like header 1 to header 3 or header 2 and there's no header 1. So it's very important to have your headers noted. And what that means, it means it's noted as a header 1. But that doesn't mean you have to see, some people are like, oh, but I don't want that size font for my header 1. I have a header 1 in the middle of the page, or usually only have one header. It's usually the title, by the way. But you say you have a header 2, and you say, I don't want the header 2 to be that size font. I want it to be a little bit smaller. You can change the font size as long as you keep the header label. That's the header label for labeled, header 2. So it doesn't fall for the size as much as it falls for the header label that makes up your outline, which makes up your roadmap of your website. All right, and this is pretty much what we just talked about. So inconsistent skipping heading levels. H1 to H3, where's H2? So logical heading structures are essential for screen readers to navigate content effectively. Follow a sequential order, so H1, H2, H3. So like main title, section title, subsection title. All right, missing and improper form labels. This was another one. So when you create a form, there's many ways to insert the information, and one of the things that needs to be inserted is the labels of the form. So you don't want the title there, so they say, okay, it's the email address, but then you get to that little box, and that little box needs to be tagged. It needs to have the label in it saying that it's email address. If not, the screen reader does not know what to put in that box. So it's very, very important to have that information. So if you go to example is like, imagine going to a coffee shop and being handed a cup with no label. Is it coffee, tea, hot chocolate? It's the same thing. It's like you go to a box and it says nothing, so you don't know what it is. So it doesn't have the label, like basically email address, to know to enter in your email address. Those are very important and very important for you as well, because if they skip over it, it's a little hard for you to have that information. So next one is robust. Oh yeah, the error message is on the one before. Just means like you need to state more than just error. You have to be a little bit more specific and stating something like insert your email address here, instead of like you clicked on it or you didn't put it in and you have an error. So but where's the error? You need to highlight where that error is. So you need to be more specific, like the email address is missing. You can alter the error messages for forms in a particular way. If you're using a platform, most of the time I think they actually have that pretty well set, so you won't be doing that yourself unless you're a web designer. Robust, compatible with assistive technology and future updates. Assistive technology compatibility, standard coding practices, and backward compatibility. I think for the most of us, unless you are a designer, you will understand the assistive technology compatibility and coding practices. But backward compatibility would mean that you need to be having your website responsive. In other words, you probably wouldn't travel back this far in time, so you wouldn't have computers that they're this old. I remember them quite well, but you are going to need to have your sites. Like a lot of people are obviously doing more modernized, and you still need to have your site compatible to older versions of Macs and laptops and even tablets. Sometimes, like I even use an old tablet, so it's good to have it so that it works on all types of devices. And then responsive for mobile devices is very, very important, because everybody's on the mobile device nowadays. Everybody's checking their mobile device. I mean, I even get up and look at my mobile device before I even, which is bad habit, but before moving on for the day. And sometimes I get some of the work done before I even get out of bed. So it's really, really important to have your site that is responsive for a mobile device. If your site cannot be seen correctly, font's too small, buttons are out of place, your columns are across the page instead of turned into a row so that you can see the images and everything else that goes with it. All that stuff needs to be changed and done specifically for a site, a responsive site. I'm going to give an example here because Wix Studio has that ability where you can click through the templates from tablet to mobile, and this is Wix Studio, not Wix Editor. Wix Editor used to only be, I don't know if that's changed over the past couple months, but it used to be only desktop to mobile, and it was missing the tablet, which was quite important when I noticed it with working with an older person who had an older laptop actually. So this is from Wix Studio, and I'll show you an example of responsive site. This is a site I'm going to actually update into a more modern site. But so I just went to tablet there. So this is now tablet size. And then it goes to the phone size. And I'm just going through, I go back to tablet, like it goes through. Now when you are creating it, it's best to go through, especially with Wix Studio, it's best to go from desktop to tablet to phone when you're editing it, because you can actually edit each element as in the tablet and then the phone. And what they have is called breakpoints. They have breakpoints, which you can, sorry about that, I had an alarm that went off. They have breakpoints. So basically, if you alter one, it might alter all of them, and that's a problem. So do it from desktop to tablet and down and watch, because if it says you just did a breakpoint, undo it, because you need to work out what's going to happen, because you don't want to alter them all. But they do have the ability to go from one down to the other, or so therefore, like the menu, as you would see in one, it goes to the hamburger menu, so to speak, and then it goes down to the hamburger menu also from the tablet down to the phone. You have to set those sometimes, so you just have to watch, and then just work it out. When you're done, go check it out on the tablet, go check it out on a phone, go check it out on if you're doing it on a PC, go check it on a Mac. You know, just go through and check it on different devices so you know how it works. Viewpoint and mobile responsive. So this is basically what I'm saying. There was someone on the site who was not being very responsive. Some sites lack proper mobility-friendly mega viewpoint settings. Poor responsive impacts usability on mobile devices. So this is a meta tag that can be added to somebody who does designing, that they can add in there to help with that issue. If you know code, then you might be able to understand that, to know that that's what you can use. Empty and broken links. Now, obviously, this is important. Obviously, you don't want somebody to get lost and be like, okay, well, I hit the link, but I'm not going anywhere. Or you know, you want them to purchase, and for some reason your button's not working. So these are broken links. These are empty links if they don't have anything in there at all, and they were never there. Broken links are links that were existent but then got moved. So if you moved your form somewhere else, that it's possible, excuse me, that it got broken, and you need to update it, that it's in a new, because there's the website, if you know your HTML that you write, you have it right up there. So basically, if that got broken, so it's no longer in your about, it's in your contact. So you need to be able to make sure that link is correct, and just update it, and then it'll fix your problem. You're going to strive for 100% accessibility, but obviously it's not going to happen necessarily. So, because accessibility is a journey and it's not a one-time task. Tools like Lighthouse can help you identify the fix issues like contrast errors, missing text, touch size. Here's an example. This was my site. It was 96, and I did correct the one issue to come up with one issue, but I did use 2 testings for this audits that I did for the sites that I was allowed to do. And this is just Lighthouse itself. So it gave me 100 by just correcting that one issue. Doesn't mean my site is 100% compliant though, because I used Wave, which is another one that you can use. There's a bunch, but I used Wave, and it's telling me I've got a few more things to fix, so I'm not 100% there. Your website, think of it as like a health check. So you're going to do accessibility audits. Why audits matter? So this is, I'm just going to move this up for a second. This is a Lighthouse audit check, is the one I was using, the one I was showing and explaining. And the highlight is to ensure your website remains accessible as it evolves, obviously, and identify barriers that may arise when content is updated or new features. If you have WordPress and you're using a theme that is run by somebody else who's obviously the designer of the theme, and they update something, it can actually cause an error in your site. So you need to be aware of that and go on and check it and fix it. Maintain compliancy with accessibility standards. Your website's health check. This is another tool that we use. I did not use this one in this actual time of testing. Your website's health check. Accessibility audits. Why they matter. Use screen readers if you have them to double check everything. Navigate your site only with a keyboard, no mouse, and you can see how it works, if it goes through everything or if it's missing something. Test on different devices and browsers. And then you want to stay accessible. So how do I do that? Now this is Wave. This is the one I did use for the testing, and anybody who actually gave me their site, they will get a testing report, which they will see that. So steps to stay accessible. Conduct audits regularly. I would say, you think of it like a car. When you have a car, you have to update your car with its registration, its inspection. It's the same thing. It's like a car. You need to do audits regularly just to keep on track. You can just do a quick test in Lighthouse if you really want and see that, okay, it's still okay. Or do Wave and quickly see where you have an issue that might need to be fixed. I would say every 6 months. I think 3 might be a little, unless you are a big company like say Amazon or something, then you might want to be doing it every 3 months. But for smaller companies, every 6 months, maybe even yearly, it depends. If you are part of the EU regulations, maybe every 6 months. Address issues promptly, track fixes in a log. So, and then document. You want to definitely keep track of what you're doing. So that way it's recorded, and if they ever do audit you, if you are a person who will be audited, then you have all the information. You can say, look, well, I've been doing this and I'm checking it up, and okay, so I happened to miss that, or this came as new, and you can prove it. So that's why it's important to keep track and have documents for it. Accessibility statement. This is like your website's mission, and it goes on your website. So it's important to have this. You need to be honest. Where does your site shine, and where are you still working on improvements? Keep it friendly. Invite users to report any barriers they find. Update it regularly. It's a living document, just like your website. Your accessibility statement isn't just a box to tick. It's not like you just tick it off and say, okay, I'm done. You're creating a space for everyone, and so your promise is to keep it alive. So you need to definitely do your audits and recheck it and make sure. It should be part of your website maintenance in general, which you should have anyway. So it should be your part of that, because I would not check it for if it's been 6 months. Double check it, make sure it's still accessible to everybody, and if there's anything we need to change. Document everything and why. It keeps a clear record of accessibility progress, helps identify recurring issues and trends, demonstrate your commitment to inclusivity and compliance. Think of documentation as accessibility recipe. You would not leave out the sugar, right? Or the sugar with the salt. So what to document? You're going to document your audit dates and results. So the tools used, the issues found, updates made, and what was fixed, future review dates, and accessibility statement revisions. Organize your documents in a folder or a project managed tool for easy access. I mean, if you're running a business, you're kind of already doing a lot of this type of stuff, as in you're keeping your expenses hopefully in a folder, your receipts, the things you purchased, invoices, etc. So it's just another document to just add to the bunch of documents that you have. And you can do this easily right there on your website. So you can create a whole page that has everything on it. Put your images of the tools that you used, and you can screenshots, put them in, how you're fixing it. You can put that even as a separate document that's not viewing to the public, but it's in a folder for your accessibility in your website, and you have it. So it's not like you even have to lose it. It could be done right there on your site, and then just put it in a private folder, and it's set there. So if you get audited or everything, you can give access to that person through a password. But for the statement, you want to have one page statement, and that's something that will that is, you can see nowadays more and more sites are putting it on there, but it's an accessibility statement which has that information on it, but you don't have to be as in detail as in you do for the audit if you were audited. All right, so knowledge is power. Accessibility training. Now, to explain this is that if you have a team, great. Explain it to your team and tell them, we're working on accessibility and this is how we're going to do it, and these are the rules if you are in the EU and further. But it's also like if you're a web designer and you have a client and you want the site to be accessible, you're going to explain to your client, I'm sure they want their site to be accessible, explaining why. So you're going to train them a little bit. You're going to be like, okay, I understand you want those colors, but those colors won't work for everybody. So if you're in the EU, the standard's saying you can't do that. If you are in the outside of EU, eventually the rules might change. So if you really want to push it with them, but so for your client, you really need to be teaching them a little bit. So a little bit of training, so that they know that certain colors, certain standards are not acceptable. So if they want, I want to imagine disco going on, and it's too fast, and then you say, look, I have to slow it down because of this, that, whatever. So yes, it's good to be having yourself trained a little bit in this matter, or if you're a web designer, definitely know it, take a class on it. So that will keep your website accessible. New contact features are added, so you want to keep your client up to date. The new one come out, new rule, regulation, new tool, this will help your site. There are plugins you can put on to help people that have vision, and you could say, look, I could plug on this. So somebody who has a vision, like my WordPress, I have a plugin that is something that they can click and change for the site of, if they have issues with color blindness, they can, I don't know if my site actually is an issue, but they can do it. They can click it and see what they need to see clearly. But so there are different ways to adapt, and it's up to you to know them. And when your team understands accessibility, your website stays inclusive and compliant. This is a checklist, basically everything I just covered, you're going to make sure that your site is by going through the 4 principles, the POUR, and then you're conducting regular audits, you're maintaining accessibility statement on your site, you train your team, and you document your progress. So that's it for now. Let's make the web accessible for all. Accessibility is a journey, not a destination, and thank you for being a part of the solution. And if anybody wants to contact me, there's my information, and I am available to help with, I'm available to work with you on doing your site. If you need to and you don't understand, you can, contact me and we can talk about it.